Hey, everybody. On today's Locked On Bama, we're going to continue Jimmy Stein's world famous roster countdown. We're going to talk about numbers 92, 91, 88, and 87. We'll talk about all that and more on today's Locked On Bama.
Locked On Bama, your daily podcast on the Alabama Crimson Tide. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back into Locked On Bama. Luke Robinson, that's me. Jimmy Stein, that's him. Jimmy, how are you today?
Yeah, I'm all right. For we're recording this on a Sunday. I don't know. I'm discombobulated today. I've been out of town. Not a lot of football news out there, and I don't know. I'm a little grumpy, frankly.
Okay, well, good. That ought to really raise the spirits of our listeners today. Thanks, Jimmy.
Hey, I'm gonna be no help in that regard today.
Want to appreciate everybody for making us the first place you listen when it comes to Alabama podcast. And I do have a Kentucky Derby story that's going to wow you here in just a little bit. But right now, we're going to start again with Jimmy's world famous roster countdown. We're going to go with number 92, Justin Eboigbe. And, you know, I like this kid a lot. I'm hoping he takes a big step up this year. I feel like he can. I feel like he's much needed. Jimmy, what are you thinking about him?
Yeah, kind of a strange kid to discuss. He's clearly good. He's been playing for the 3 years he's already been on the team. He's been a first-team player. Doesn't necessarily start the games, but that doesn't matter. He plays with the first team. I mean, he comes in and plays in the first quarter of every game, no matter the opponent, no matter the score. He's a first-team guy. Now, you know, the problem, if you want to call it that, has been he hasn't really been a huge playmaker. I mean, he obviously plays well, or he wouldn't be out there. They wouldn't just keep running him out there if he was, you know, not performing well, or at least to the standards the coaches expect. But he hasn't really been, you know, a candidate for all SEC team or make a bunch of plays. I think the challenge for him, Luke, in this final season, or right now it's a senior season, he could come back next year with his COVID year, and which might be a good idea, by the way. I think that the next step for him is to become a player we depend on, not to play, not to be first team, not to be part of the rotation, but a player we depend on literally to win the games. I know one way I look at big games, Luke, that we play every season, every fall, when we're playing a big game, and we do, in my mind, in week 2 against Texas, for instance, on the road. Always look at the oldest kids who are playmakers or should be playmakers. And I'm like, y'all have to win the game. I mean, I know we're excited about, you know, this freshman or that freshman, or sophomore Dallas Turner, or sophomore Kool-Aid McKinstry. But if we're going to beat somebody really good on the road, that has to be on the backs of the older kids who this is their team. It's their time. And I think Eboigbe is a good example of that. Justin has to go from being a first-team player to being the reason Alabama beat Texas. And I'm ready for him to make that step. I'm sure the coaches are too.
You know, one thing, checking over his stats over his 3 years, do you know how many sacks he has in 3 years? Did you, in your study?
I do not, but I do not, but I can guess, and I bet I can come pretty close.
Go ahead.
In 3 years, 3.5.
2.
Yep.
One and a half as a freshman, and half a sack last year.
Yeah, that's just not good enough. And again, first of all, we have to admit this, which is true. I mean, he's not out there playing because he has compromising pictures of Freddie Roach. No, he's playing because he's earned it, and he's good, and he's one of the best defensive linemen we have. He's been consistently part of the first team rotation for 3 years. So this is a guy that Nick Saban and Pete Golding and Freddie Roach believe is contributing in a positive way to the team. So he is. Now, he needs to take the next step, which is simply to make more plays. I'll tell you who does. We barely notice as fans, but at some point, we're going to, Byron Young is the same age, came in at the same time, and has also been a first team player for the same period of time. look at Justin Eboigbe's numbers and now know that Byron Young has made 88 tackles with 8 sacks and 18 tackles for loss in the same period of time. And I think that's what really stands out. Like, wow, Justin, you would have thought has made more plays than he has. And Byron, it's kind of a surprise he's been that level of productive. So really, we need to see a little bit more Byron out of Justin.
I like that. That is really good.
Put that.
That sounds like, you know what? That sounds like something the Backstreet Boys manager would say to the Backstreet Boys, because I bet you there was a Justin and a Byron on the squad or team or whatever the hell they are, group, and he was like, Justin, you need to be more like Byron. And then there'll be another fancy dancing white dude named London. What the hell am I talking about? I don't know. I'm going to quit talking now.
I was in a nightclub like back in this probably would have been 97 or not 90. Yeah, about 98, 99. I don't know if nightclub, kids probably didn't call it. I was in is a bar, and I guess it's sort of like a club. And me and my buddy David and my brother Philip, it was the three of us, and we're in this nightclub. And for whatever reason, the waitress walks up to us and acted like she knew it. We didn't know her, but she acted like she obviously thought we were somebody else. But she walked up and she said something like, "Good to see y'all again," or "Wow, nice to have y'all back," I think is what she said. We didn't go to this place. So my friend David said, "Well, it feels really good to be recognized." And then I guess the waitress realized that she didn't know who we were. And she looked at me and she said, "Should I know y'all?" And I said, "Well, we are the Backstreet Boys." I have no idea where. And see, the funny thing about the joke is I was not a Backstreet Boys fan. None of us were. I have no idea where I got that from, but it was just a snap reaction joke. Should I know y'all? So, we are the Backstreet Boys.
I mean, yeah. Don't they all
She didn't laugh, but that was like 20 years ago. And every now and then we're together, me and David and Philip, we still laugh about it. I doubt the waitress, she didn't even laugh that night, but
she probably still doesn't know who you are.
No.
Even now that you have this podcast. Jimmy, let me when I come back, I got to tell you a really quick Kentucky Derby story that I heard this weekend about a friend of mine that's awesome. And it ties into Alabama because he's an Alabama fan. But right now I want to tell everybody about Built Bar. Look, they just sent us these samples for the birthday cake puffs. I can't wait to dive into these mothers. Imagine dipping your finger into that plastic tub of birthday cake frosting. You know what I'm talking about. We all love that. And then opening your eyes and realizing that was only 150 calories and 16 grams of protein. That's awesome. That's what it's like to eat a birthday cake puff from Built. Go to Built.com, use promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off that order. All Built Puffs are covered in 100% real chocolate. That means with Built, you can eat healthy and actually enjoy doing it. And they are made with collagen protein, which your body absorbs more effectively and efficiently and provides tons of health benefits. Go to Built.com and get your birthday cake puffs now. Go to Built.com, use promo order. That's promo for 15% off that order at Built.com. Oatis, Kentucky Derby story. A buddy of mine got invited to the Kentucky Derby through a mutual friend, or at least he's an acquaintance of mine, friend of my buddy. And he is the friend that invited him is extremely wealthy. And he had tickets for everybody to like sit literally on right at the finish line of the Kentucky Derby. And it was just a thing. They all got to go in these special all access things. I mean, they could, my buddy said he could have patted Rich Strike on the butt if he'd wanted to. I mean, he could have ridden Rich Strike if he wanted to. But anyway, so my friend has 3 sons, and they're all, one of them's going to Bama next year. One of them's probably about 15. One of them's probably about 12, 13, 14, somewhere in there. And so he told his sons, because they were all jealous, he got to go to the Kentucky Derby. And he told them, hey, look, I'll put a $100 bet down on any horse you want to for each of you, since you don't get to go. And I'm getting to go, and I'm getting this, free trip, and it's going to be awesome. So the 2 of the boys, the older and the younger boy, researched it, looked it up, and they bet on the favorites. The middle kid said he wanted to bet on Ethereal, whatever it was. Well, that horse is the one that got scratched. So my friend called his middle son and said, look, that your horse got scratched. Who do you want? He said, well, just give me the one with the longest odds. I don't care. So my buddy said, you know what? I just about didn't bet on it because I was like, I'm just putting $100 up a horse's butt. I don't want to do that. I mean, I'm just blowing it. But he went to the counter and said, all right, I'm going to do it. And he put his $100 up there and said, give me $100 to win on the horse the longest odds. And the guy looked back and said, well, that's Rich Strike, and you're a dumb son of a bitch. He said the guy really called him that. So anyway, after the race was over, the guy that handled all, bringing everybody there, the really rich guy, I'm trying to not use names to protect the innocent and guilty. He said, I don't care who wins what. We're heading out because I don't want to get stuck in traffic. So my buddy really didn't even know who won the race. It was so bam, bam. Like everybody was just cheering. And he was like, okay, everybody was hustling out the door. So on his way out the hallway, he heard somebody say, I cannot believe the horse with the longest odds won. And he goes, oh my God, I think my son won. Well, immediately he called his son and said, he didn't even look at the ticket. It was still in his wallet or something. He didn't even know what the odds were. And he called his son, said, you won. His son immediately Googled the odds and said, Dad, you owe me $8,000 at 80-1. And he was like, oh my God. Well, he couldn't even cash the ticket because the guy said, we got to go. I don't care. Nobody's cashing any tickets. I'll cash it later. So he wasn't able to cash the ticket. He's going to let that guy's wife cash it this weekend because they're closed all week. And meanwhile, his son, who goes to a boarding school, keeps calling his dad. He's like a bookie. He's like, where's my money?
Where's my money?
Where's my money? So the dad said, my buddy said to his son, look, I'm going to give you this money because I told you what, but you got to come up with a business plan. You've got to have what you want to do with it. Like, we're going to tithe some, we're going to give some to charity, we're going to do this. And so the son comes back and after like 30 minutes goes, okay, I got it. I'm going to go ahead and give $150 for tithing. I feel like that's good. I'm going to go ahead and give $100 to charity. I'm going to save $500. I'm going to invest $500 and I'm spending the rest of that stuff. And
that's the plan.
Yeah, that's my business plan. I'm going to blow it. And I'm going to bet on some more horses. That's my business. I got a pretty good plan. I'm about to double my money. But anyway, somebody who could not ride a horse unless that horse was the literal Trojan horse, that's Jahim Oatis. Jahim
Good
Oatis,
segue.
he is a monstrous human being, bigger than all outside. But he's even as big as he is, he would shock people with his bigness now. But if they had seen him 3 months ago, people would have fainted at his large-esque.
Yeah, I heard in December, and when I say I heard, I know, he was over 400 pounds in December. About the time of that high school all-star game, just tremendously overweight. What made him such a good prospect is even though he played in his 12th grade year so overweight, and still demonstrated a level of burst and athleticism that you just knew somewhere inside there is a big-time player. And, I'll admit at one point it looked like he might be flipping to Ole Miss. And I knew he was over 400 pounds. And at that time, I'll be honest, I really didn't care as an Alabama fan. I was like, well, all right. I know, I always look at it like if Nick wants him, then I want him, right? That should always be our attitude. And that was my attitude. If Nick wants him, I want him. But there's some you lose sleep over and some are like, yeah, whatever. And I was, whatever. Well, that was months ago. Now, fast forward, and thanks to Pete Golding's good work and Nick Saban's good work and Freddie Roach's good work, he plays for Alabama. And now, thanks to the kids' good work, we can see why Alabama and Coach Saban were so excited about him in the first place. He's driven. He's lost the most amount of weight in a short period of time I could remember of any Alabama player ever. His story is now starting to remind me a lot of Daron Payne. Daron was also very overweight during a portion of his high school career, and I worried that would carry over to college and he wouldn't be a good player at Alabama. But the moment that Alabama rolled around, Daron turned into a different dude, and it's so much of like what's going on with Jahim. So I'm really excited about him now. I don't know how much of him we'll see this fall because that defensive line room is really crowded, 14 players on scholarship. It's hard to imagine a freshman getting on the field. But he is uniquely suited to play in the goal line package. So maybe we do see him this fall situationally, which would also be a good reward to him for his hard work. So I won't be surprised if that's the case.
Yeah, you bring every time somebody says Daron Payne now, I can't help but think about when he and Jonathan Allen got in a fight on the sidelines with the Redskins this year. And all I can think is, if that had actually come to blows, I really wish that somebody had filmed it and sold it at the movie rights to the people who do Mothra versus Godzilla or whatever, because what a hell of a battle that would be. Jimmy, we're going to take a break. When we come back, I'm going to talk about Miles Kitselman, number 88 in your countdown. But right now, I got to tell everybody about Bet Online. Bet Online, they're our partners. They continue to be the number one source for all your betting needs and sports info. Find all the latest odds, news, and sports developments, including this year's basketball playoffs, Major League Baseball scores, fights, and even next season's NFL future. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sports wagering information, from live betting to playoffs, esports, and more. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action. BetOnline is where the game starts. All right, Jimmy, Miles Kitselman, name that makes me think. If I didn't see a picture of him, I would think this guy got the hell beat out of him a lot in junior high. But I feel like he probably didn't.
Yeah, I think he was the one handing out the ass beatings. I think he's a big kid and an offensive lineman in high school. And who would have guessed, for as much as we follow the program here and all our listeners do, or you wouldn't be listening to the show, who would have guessed that here we are just 80 something days from the start of practice, and we're talking about a guy named Miles Kitselman, not because he's just randomly in the news, but he's on our football team. Like, again, it's fair to ask who, but as time has moved on and I found more about the kid, I'm sort of excited about him. Not excited. I know what the odds are. Look, when you sign a sleeper at Alabama, I've already crunched the numbers. I already have. When Alabama signs a kid that is very lightly recruited, and this kid is as lightly recruited as any player Alabama's ever signed. When Alabama signs a lightly recruited player, the chances of him developing into a star is right at about 10%. And I'm not saying that, hey, I've looked into it and this kid's got a better shot than 10%. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying, I guess the shot's 10%. But I am looking forward to seeing how his career unfolds, because he does have a unique story, and unique stories somehow tend to work out at tight end more than any other spot. On an unrelated note, funny how we're talking about him at 88. I talked about him on day 88 because I just kind of was in the mood to talk about him. He doesn't have a number yet. I actually think he'll be 87 because that's what he wore at Hutch, and we do have 87 available. So he's probably going to be 87. I just felt like talking about him on day 88, and I just sort of did the, hey, I'm a king of this thing, and just sort of declared 88 Miles Kitselman Day. In fact, I think he'll be 87. The guy I want to talk about at 87 is Amari Nablack. Know what number I think he's going to be? 88. Because O.J. Howard was 88, and I could see him being given O.J.'s number.
Interesting. Now Black for the next podcast, but I do have an interesting question for you.
Sure.
Who was the non-O.J. Howard 88 receiver, tight end, anything that you remember? If we did a number association with a memory.
Yeah.
And you said, okay, hey, who's number 37? I mean, I'm saying Sean Alexander. The new crop may say, I don't know, wasn't Levi Wallace 37 or
right.
Robert Lester?
Robert Lester.
Now, but if I say 88, I don't even think O.J. Howard initially. You know who I think of? Marco Battle.
I was just about to say Marco Battle was 88. And Marco Battle is a great example, Luke, of how you view the game differently as a kid. And I'm not saying I knew nothing about football when I was in high school or when I was a young student in Alabama. I mean, I probably knew more than most kids my age. But my point is, if you asked me when I was 19 or 20 years old, was Marco Battle really good? I would have gone like, oh, Marco Battle's awesome, because he was a starter and he was number 88 on the football team, and he was out there running around with the first team. But when you look back on it, and you see, well, really the awesome wide receivers are guys like Ruggs and Devontae Smith and Judy and Julio. maybe some of these wide receivers of my youth, like Marco, like Jesse Bendross, maybe they weren't Randy
Clay
Moss.
Whitehurst.
Clay Whitehurst. Maybe they weren't Randy Moss as I sort of remember them as.
It's funny because we don't recruit any of those three guys. No offense to them at all. They played at the University of Alabama. That's badass. But this Nick Saban crowd does not recruit any of those three guys, in my opinion.
No, that's 100%. That's 100% right. And I'm not like you. I'm not taking a shot at them. These guys were like heroes of my youth. So I guess I sort of put them on a pedestal, but they didn't play in the NFL. They weren't not just first round picks. They weren't picks at all. Oh, and back then the draft was 12 freaking rounds.
Hey, let me say this. And this has nothing to do with the recent arrest, which turned out to be much ado about nothing for Jerry Jeudy. Turned out to be basically nothing.
That's just crap.
It was crap. But I'm not so sure. I wouldn't be more excited to meet Marco Battle than Jerry Jeudy. That's so weird.
Could not agree more. Totally agree. I would fanboy out a little bit over a Marco Battle, and like Jerry Jeudy is just like another Saban 5-star.
I mean, to be remembered as a wide receiver from Alabama in the 80s is about the highest compliment you can give a wide receiver from Alabama in the 80s.
How about a running back we had on that same team? Remember David Castile?
Oh yeah. How about one from '88 when Marco Battle was there? I think Murray Hill. Saban's recruiting Murray Hill. And I love Murray Hill.
Hey, we don't beat Kentucky at Kentucky without Murray Hill in 1988. And yeah, he's from Atmore, and even though that's a good hour and a half up the road from me, I still consider it sort of local to me. But Murray Hill, one of our great Scatback doesn't even begin to describe him. No. That was one small. David Palmer says Murray Hill was small.
Yeah. If you had a team of Scatbacks, he would be the Scatback on that team. Okay. All right. Jimmy, that's going to do it for the day's episode. Thanks, everybody, for listening. We really appreciate you guys so much. Please do convince your family members and acquaintances and even enemies to subscribe to our podcast. We would appreciate that very much. So until next time, roll tide, everybody.
Roll tide.